Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
Here with another Brand Doctor Podcast episode for you. And we have an amazing guest today as my journey continues to find more inspiring female entrepreneurs out there and have them share their stories of entrepreneurship and how they've built their brands. I have to tell you, I am so super excited and inspired by our next guest. I did my homework on her, and she is quite the personality. She's quite the spunky type, which I love. Without further ado, we're going to talk about how creating uplifting content and the result of creating uplifting content for your business and brand, and what that does to your audience, what that does to your perception, what that does to your business as a whole. So, Ione Butler.
Ione.
What's going on?
Hey, darling, I'm good. How are you?
Doing awesome. So, let's get into this. So, how did you create the brand to begin with?
Well, it was a bit of a journey, to be honest. I started it 2 years ago with a friend of mine. I've always felt like I deal with depression a lot. It's something that I've had on and off for years. And when I feel really low, it was always a struggle to find stuff to put me in a good mood. Like I'm a person that like wants to control everything. And I'm like, I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel good. And I would flick through stuff on TV and I'd never find anything. And it was just difficult. So it shouldn't be this difficult to find uplifting stuff. And so, I had started it with a friend of mine who is an influencer, creates really beautiful, incredible content. And we had this idea to start a production company that creates sort of beautiful video and content with messages. But he's super successful, really didn't have the time to commit to it. And so we kind of went our separate ways. And in that kind of growing period in time, like I'm an actress too, I was working as an actress and doing voiceover and traveling, doing other sorts of stuff. Kind of being the head of my one woman production company wasn't that wasn't a good idea at the time. It was just a bit too much. So then I really started to bring in that idea of, for me, I had the idea of like a hub. It's a hub of uplifting content, inspirational and uplifting content. And so it's so funny. Your face looks so serious. What's happening? Is my face over there or something? This is really cool.
Oh my God, you're hysterical. Is that distracting you?
I mean, I'm like, do you have my face on a screen somewhere else? Is that what? Okay. Because I can see you. I'm like, okay, I get it now. Okay. Very fancy setup you've got. I'm just very simple. So anyway, it then became this hub of uplifting, inspirational content. And so it's very simple. The brand is very simple in that anything that we share or post, the question I ask, and I have people ask on the team, is, does it leave you feeling uplifted? Does it leave the reader or the watcher or somebody who is consuming that content feeling uplifted? And sometimes people have this misconception that it's about like fluffy cats and, just like really mediocre stories about nothing. And that's not true. Like, I'm not saying that we should not talk about things that matter, things that are important, things that are serious. It's how you talk about it. So for me, it's not about, you can talk about a news story, a war even, but it's just, you can tell it in a way that leaves people feeling inspired, not just, these are all a bunch of horrendous things that are happening. The world sucks. Have a good day. It's like, these are horrendous things that are happening. These are remarkable people who are doing things in spite of this, who are trying to make a difference. If you want to make a difference, you can too. Here's how. Do you know what I mean? So uplifting content isn't just kittens and rainbows. It's the idea that you're delivering something that leaves someone feeling inspired, empowered, motivated, and uplifted.
I love it. And forgive me if I go too deep on these interviews. I learned so much.
I like depth.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Because I learned so much from my guests. It's unbelievable. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, over just the past 10 days that I've been really going gung-ho on the female entrepreneurship. and understanding and learning all of their journeys individually. It's amazing how things get created and transpire from personal issues, like from things. And so because of your dealing with depression and all of that, do you find that the brand has really been quite the therapy for you while you're out there helping other people?
Yeah, it definitely has been. But then on the flip side of that, there's also the pressure. And so for me, it's like an ongoing thing. Like I'm still going through it. And the reason that I do it is that I know that other people out there are experiencing the same thing. And so I talk about it a lot because I know that when I talk about it, it gets other people to open up about it. But it's still like really difficult. Like from October to maybe even last month, I was just in a real bad place and like wanting to give up on everything. And I canceled a talk that I had in London for an event because for me, I feel like a bit of a fraud. It's like, how are you trying to go out and uplift people when you feel awful and don't want to get out of bed and are really struggling? And so for me, it's like, it is a therapy in a way because it kind of forces me to, like move through it and grow through it and learn from it. And the way that I find that that I'm doing it, the reason I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing is from these experiences, I'm then like sharing my experiences, helping other people. And it does, when I kind of get out of that funk enough to like move forward, then I want to go and help other people move through that and come out on the other side. Because I know what I'm capable of. And when I'm in flow, when things are going well, it's just like ridiculous. Everything is just popping off. Things go really well. I can just like feel like I can take on the world. And when I'm not, it's just everything just stops. And so, yeah, it's just I'm going to continue sharing my journey and what's going on because I know that it helps some people.
I love your transparency. One of the things that I look for in brands is true transparency. And I see that just by consuming your content, just a little bit that I've consumed thus far. I mean, you really put it out there. And I really feel like you are truly an amazing human being, and you're really not afraid of what people are saying or doing or reacting to your content, because it's, I think we all get scared. We're all afraid of being embarrassed. We're all afraid of failing. We're all afraid of, just fill in the blank. And I didn't know that you canceled that meeting in England. And I feel the same way too sometimes. Like imposter syndrome starts to kick in, and next thing you know, you're like, am I even worthy of owning this business to begin with? And all that starts to creep in, and you say to yourself, like, how do I get out of this funk? I mean, listen, Ione, you're not alone. I think a lot of us all go through those funks, and we're going to continue to go through those funks. It's how we react to those funks when we see them creeping in is what's going to determine our future and how we're going to move forward and get through it. And one of the things that my mentor, God bless his soul, has taught me to do, because I'm sort of that fluctuating type of guy. I'm a very extroverted, I'm very emotional, I'm very passionate, and one of the things that I realized was when somebody would say something bad about me, I would be like, that's it. Like, I'm canceling vacation for the family. I'm a complete failure. That guy or that gal is absolutely right. I am useless. I am pathetic. I am, and fill in the blank, right? And then, my mentor said, like, yeah, one negative comment and it has you like in a deep depression. Like, that's not Henry. And so he taught me there's 3 questions you ask yourself when you get confronted with information like that. He said, 1, you ask yourself, is it true? Is this fact or is this opinion? And the second thing he said, you want to ask yourself, is this statement, is this energy going to build my confidence or is it going to make me insecure? And then the third question you ask yourself in this split seconds is this information going to help me or is it going to hurt me? And he gave this example of his kids. He's got an 11-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy. And the 14-year-old boy had this beautiful, beautiful like sculpture that he'd made in class. And the 11-year-old boy is not as mindful, and he's a little bit more clumsy, right? So he's walking into Big Brother's room with something in his hands, and he knocks the sculpture off the lantern or off the mantle, and the thing goes in 1,000 pieces on the floor. Now, 14-year-old son looks at little brother with rage in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Then he begins to immediately shed tears. And then a split second later, this overwhelming calm comes over him. And he says to little brother, "It's okay." And he did what he said, and it was amazing to see because he was a little version of me, because that's how I handle my situation. And he says to see him do it so flawlessly was incredible. And I got so much out of that. I got so much out of that little story, because how quickly do we look at things and say, "Ooh, that's gospel. That must be gospel because they said it." And it's really not.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So where do we go from here, Ione? Where do we go from here? Like, what were some of so my next question is, as you're building this brand and it's growing rapidly, I mean, I see I see you on Instagram and I see you on Facebook, and it looks like you have a very engaged community. My first question is, what were some of the trials and tribulations you went through as you're building this brand? And then I got a follow-up question after that.
Yeah, and again, they're definitely ongoing things. So it was just sort of, in the beginning, it was just sort of working to understand what goes well, finding the right type of content, knowing what elements of it make something go viral, because that was the way that the page grew originally, viral video.
So can you talk about that for a second? What were some of the specific pieces of content that made certain videos go viral? What do you think the elements were, in your opinion?
I think it comes down to something that really has something that really kind of has an emotional like quality to it, something that really connects with people on an emotional level. Like, there's just a lot of crap online that doesn't really connect. It's just kind of just sort of everything is out there. And so when there's something that makes people feel or think, or, you know, where they're like, yes, that I agree, that's right. Something that's deeper, I feel. But then you can't go too deep. There were certain things, you know, we'd ask questions or, you know, do memes, and then it gets too deep, and then it just like brushes over people's head a little bit, because they don't want to have to think about it because they're on Facebook. So it's just a fine balance of, you know, just, I think, core truth telling about things that really matter and are important to people in an easy to understand way. Keep it simple, stupid. Like there's just, you know, if you can say it in a minute, don't make your video 5 minutes. And so, yeah, it's just, I think that would be the key. And then trials and tribulations now continue with Facebook algorithm changes. So just, you know, still dealing with that, and I'm contemplating. It's harder to reach people in the page now, and I probably should just do Facebook ads, but I was always hesitant to do that, because then you don't know what content is working if you're paying for it. Right. So I was hesitant to do it, but now organic reach is so non-existent that I'm probably going to have to start going into that. So I'm kind of dealing with those types of things too. And then my own personal dealings with, it's like, you know, selling to people, and with personal development, with spirituality, I kind of have a resistance to kind of selling to people, to the community. But I got to make some money. So I'm kind of working through my own beliefs about that and money, and taking money from the community and like, what am I offering in return? Like, I'm like, my belief is that you keep giving it and things come. But because of everything it's changing, I'm kind of having to get more smart about the strategy and the business model and what I'm doing. And so now it's moving into more, I'm working on a book and stepping more into speaking and stuff like that. So yeah, and that's the thing when it's this kind of digital world, it's ever evolving, constantly changing. You know, we went from, you know, Facebook Lives that were getting 20,000 views to like a fraction of that. And so I take it personally as like something's gone wrong, and it's not. Algorithms have changed. People aren't seeing the videos anymore. So it's kind of just reminding myself that just keep going with what works, keep going with what resonates with people, keep, you know, getting feedback from people, and then just trying to navigate all these algorithm changes and things that are coming up.
Well, that was my next question. It's funny. I just want to respond to some of the Facebook comments that we're getting. You know, David Milton says your offering is you in capital U. And he said your accent probably is a huge positive if your audience is primarily in the US. Olio says,
hi, Olio.
Yeah, Olio says, you light the small candle to remove the dark. Sometimes what we do are stepping stones to greater things to come. I wholeheartedly believe that. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. This is your show, not mine today. But there's a lot of things that happened in the past that got me to where I am today. And thank God that those things happened. I will say that. I always look at things as an opportunity and a blessing versus something that is taken away from me. So I look at that. And so my next question was, it was so funny you mentioned about the offering, right? And it just triggered something in my head a little bit. Like I struggled tremendously with selling myself for years. I called myself the worst seller on the planet. I can't sell. I can't close. I'm awful. I'm a great designer, you know, but forget it. When I get on the phone, I choke and it's all that. So I told myself that for years until I finally got a sales coach, because I said, if I can't sell myself out of a paper bag, then I truly don't deserve this business. And it wasn't until my sales coach said that, Henry, you're not selling anything. Let's call a spade real quick. He said, you're helping these people. And he said, when you get on the phone with them and you think that you're selling them, then of course you're going to get that feeling inside of you. But you offer a tremendous service to entrepreneurs, and they need you, and you're helping them. And only those that accept your help will progress and will get to where they want to be faster, easier, quicker, smarter, whatever, you know, fill it in. He said, but what I just want you to take away from today is you are helping these people. You're not selling them anything. And I just wanted to share that with you because I don't know, something told me that I needed to share that with you today. But I think that you have a tremendous service or a tremendous message, I should say. In your media kit, it says here, you know, you're changing the world by putting more focus on the positive, and you're encouraging people to be of service. And I feel like that is a very, very powerful message, and more people need to hear it.
Yeah. Yes, they do. I'll carry on with that.
Well, you're doing a hell of a job with being entertaining and being uplifting and sharing your story, you know, online on a digital platform and on social media. I know a lot of people are mortified of camera. They're mortified of sharing their story. They're mortified of sharing their message. And I give you a lot of props for getting out there and being brave and putting yourself out there and coming to a country by yourself. I'm assuming you're alone, but like coming here and being like, I'm going to dominate this country. I'm taking over LA. And that's because I don't know if I would go to another country and just start.
I recommend it to everyone to go to a new country. It wasn't as big a deal for me. Like, I've traveled to the States since I was really young. My mom was a travel agent, so I've always traveled a lot. So it wasn't as if it was, a big step really. And it's an English speaking country. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I moved somewhere else where I had to learn a new language and didn't know anybody. But what it did do was force me out of my comfort zone. Like, I traveled a lot. I always saw myself as quite independent, but I'd only ever lived in London. And I just thought, well, that doesn't sound like someone that's very independent and worldly. Like, you need to live in another country at least once. And so, yeah, it was one of the best decisions I made, because it just forced me into just doing, making those connections with people, trying to find a way to survive and make a living and get my green card and do all these different things. It forces you out of to a whole nother level of yourself. Right. And I think it's very easy to get complacent, just doing the same thing and staying at home. And so I strongly recommend that for everyone. Just give yourself that challenge of going and living somewhere else for a year or so. Worst case scenario, you come home.
Let's talk about this for a second. Staying in your comfort zone and staying in your comfort zone and the cost associated with staying in your comfort zone. People like, you know what? Let me just stay here. It's safe. I don't have to risk anything. God forbid something happens, I'm going to be okay. But then what is the cost associated with staying in your comfort zone, in your opinion, through your eyes?
Well, I mean, it kills your dreams, and it also, it just kind of keeps you where you are. I think you can't grow. You can't grow when you're in your comfort zone. For me, I was in my little Facebook comfort zone. The page was growing and things were going really well. I'm like, yep, just doing the same thing, and we're carrying on doing the same thing. And then the algorithm changed and everything changed. And I was really upset by it. But in fact, that change has set me off on a whole new path, because it made me realize that, and I never wanted it to be about just a social media page, because I just thought that's just not smart, having all your eggs in one basket. But inevitably, that's what I had. And since that change, and through speaking to a friend of mine who's like my cheerleader / mentor, he's just phenomenal and shows me things reminds me of things about myself that sometimes I forget. Just reminded me of you've built this huge following, you've got this amazing community, you're helping people on a daily basis, you're doing all this stuff. Like, why don't you have a book? Why aren't you speaking? Like, there's all these people with huge careers. You've got a bigger following, like twice the size as a lot of them. Like, why aren't you doing that? And I was like, that's a good question, because I've been in my comfort zone. So I think we need to keep pushing ourselves, and it's uncomfortable because it's the unknown, and it's challenging, but you have to. The impact of staying in your comfort zone is you just don't grow and don't realize your potential, I think.
I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. I could take him in doses, because when you watch that individual for so long, you start to get really amped up and your blood pressure goes through the roof. But one of the things that really resonated with me is when he was talking about regret. And that's one of the things that really resonated with me as a entrepreneur, and getting out there every single day, waking up and doing what it is that day guides me to do. And, when I was growing up, my parents had a very difficult time having children, and they only were able to have one, which was me. It took them 16 years to figure out how to conceive a child. Just one operation after the other, nothing worked. Finally, it was the day of the Immaculate Conception, and boom, little Henry was conceived on that day, ironically. And it was funny, about 2 years after I was born, my mom comes into my room, and I'm in the crib, and I'm blue in the face, non-responsive. And so they rushed me to the hospital, and my mom told me the whole story. When I'm not going to go into details here, but I almost died, at the age of 2. And I always listen to that story. 16 years to have me. When I was 2, I get deathly ill, and hearing that story over and over and over again as a child, it makes you think like, man, you're here for a reason, dude. And you're here for, to make a difference. And, it's funny. I wear this band, on, and I haven't taken it off for 3 years now. And it says, remember why you started. And every time I have this weird, funk, and I start looking at things all negatively, I just look down at that band and I ask myself, or tell myself, remember why you started. And it all comes down to that story. Mm-hmm. And so I think what we need to do is look at all the positive in life and ask ourselves, what, why are we here?
Right.
And what are we doing to make this world a better place? And Olio said, what Ione does makes the world a better place, and there's no amount of money for that.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, Olio. He's such a ledge.
That's a beautiful statement. And I think that just goes to show the kind of impact that you're making on people's lives.
Yeah, and it was easy. I'd forgotten that because everything's online, so you don't always see it. And so yeah, just kind of getting feedback was reminding me of that, and that's kind of that's what I'm all about with uplifting content, because everybody has this inherent gift. Everyone is here to do something remarkable or whatever. It's in all of us, and yet because of the way that we live, because of the type of world we live in, where it's about money and fame and things over kind of core values like creativity and giving and serving, it's easy to get kind of consumed in this kind of this world that we live in. And so I kind of want to keep reminding people of that. Like, there are these gifts that when you are reminded of that, when you focus on that, bringing those out and kind of doing that and living that, it's kind of what I want. And the struggle is real. Like, I'm doing all this stuff, and yet I lose myself sometimes. I get caught up in the noise and the distractions and the struggle of everything that's going on. And so that's kind of the idea of uplifting content, is just to keep providing that content to remind you of all these things, so that you can be reminded of your value, your worth, your power, and go out and make a difference. But I think it's an ongoing thing for all of us. We all need to keep coming back around.
Yeah, and coming back stronger.
Yeah.
Just knowing what it is that, like, I had my cousins over last night. They slept over. We had a little slumber party, and one of my cousins is going through some stuff right now. Whatever, not to get into detail, but my question to her was, "What did you learn from this situation? What's the takeaway? What'd you learn?" And I gave I used an example. I mean, there was a few months back where my process, for my business, there were some leaks. There was some shaky ground there, right? And there was a bottleneck. And my clients would be just ecstatic until we got to that point, and they started to get frustrated. And I said, if I don't fix this process issue, it's client after client. They're just going to get pissed at this one spot. So and eventually I had a really nasty client that just went at me and went at me publicly. And I said, so what did you learn from this, Henry? Right. And I said, I need to tighten up this process. I need to fix this, or else it's just going to happen over and over and over again. And that's what I did. And now it's just one happy customer after the next. And we all go through life that way. If we continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over, or stay in our comfort zone because we're afraid to make those mistakes, where are we going?
Yeah.
So I love that you bring this up. So I'm very conscious of time, and I know you got a busy day. So I'm going to start to turn the corner on this episode. But one of the things I wanted to ask you was this. Say tomorrow was not guaranteed, and it's not. If you had to give a message today, knowing that tomorrow might not come, to the people that are watching this and listening to this right now, what would be that one message?
Oh, that's deep. I like it. It would be, the world needs you desperately to step up and step into your potential and stop thinking small. Get conscious of those negative, well, not even negative, just those beliefs and those thought patterns that are holding you back, because everything that's stopping you being where you want to be comes down to the thoughts and the beliefs that you have about yourself now. So I would say, yeah, the world needs you. People need you. We need you. Step up. Stop it.
I love it.
And yeah, live your life out loud, really. Yeah, it's too short to not be loving it and feeling joy and having an amazing experience. So, yeah. Yeah.
I love it. You are a beautiful soul, my friend. So
Thanks, Henry.
let me ask you this. 2018, right? We're almost halfway through it. My God.
I know, it's so strange. I traveled most of last year and it went so much slower. Like there's something that I read that if you do the same thing over and over again, like if you drive to work every day and if you work in an office, there's nothing that distinguishes the days as separate days. So a whole year doing the same thing is just one day. Whereas if you drive to work one day and there's like a horrific car crash, you're going to remember that day you drove to work because there's something very different happened. So last year I traveled so much. I'd been to like 4 countries by this point and like I'd done a bunch of stuff. And now I'm like, where's it gone this year? Because I've been in LA kind of doing the same thing every day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's nuts. Anyway, sorry. It was 2018.
So what's going on? What's going on with the brand, your business this year? What do you have on the horizon? If there's some sneak peeks that you can share with the audience, my audience, your audience, on what they could expect from you and the business and the brand in the next few weeks, in the next few months, what's it look like for you?
So I am working on a book proposal to get to my agent to get an uplifting content book series going. So I'm really excited about that. It'll be a chance for me to go out and connect and interview people and just meet some awesome people. Also seeing if we can get that idea turned into a TV series, so an uplifting content TV series, which I'd like because I'm an actor, I like hosting, I'm an on-camera person. And then I'm stepping into speaking. I realized that I like talking to people and helping people and having that connection. I want to do more of that. It felt really good. I finally got over my insecurity in February and did a speaking engagement in March, and that just went really well. So doing more of that. I want to do an uplifting foundation, in which it's bringing people from the community together to support their causes and like do stuff and getting funding, using the platform to leverage funding to distribute to different people's causes. And what was the other thing? Oh, there was one more thing. And it's just like totally disappeared from my brain. Oh, travel. Partnering with a travel agency. It's an amazing company called Life Before Work travel agency. And yeah, they want to kind of branch into more travel with purpose rather than just like, going out and getting drunk, which is fun. Just travel, more conscious travel. And so we're partnering. I'm going to go and do one of their events for Yacht Week in Croatia later on in the year. And then we're going to kind of make like packages for uplifting content. Because again, it's like the people need to be uplifted. People want community. And people want to make a difference and give back and help. And so I want to start bringing the community together off the internet, in person, and help people kind of go out and actually take action and do stuff. So yeah, those are the plans.
I can totally see you doing live events, totally doing retreats. That's like so right up your alley. I know you for like an hour, and I know that you would crush it at that. Let me ask you a quick question before we wrap up. How'd you get over your fear of speaking?
So I have a really amazing friend called Adam, who basically just reminded me of, Ione, you're doing all these things anyway. I started doing my Facebook Lives again, and just, the response that I get from people is really beautiful. I think that I had this idea that I needed to sound very very knowledgeable and very factual so that people, so my points were validated. And so I was really struggling with what to say. And then I was just getting on the lives and just riffing and talking to people from the heart, which is what I'm good at and what I like doing. And then I was like, you don't need to bombard them with facts. Like, you're not writing a paper here. You're speaking. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I know why I've started this. I know the impact that it's having. I know how this is helping me from my experience and what I'm doing. Like, these are all things that I know. So rather than try to be this, serious speaker who's like world renowned, I was like, just speak from the heart about the things that you know. And it really resonated. And every time I've done that, been authentic and honest and real and just open, it's always resonated really well with people. And I just felt so good after the talk. Like, I was slightly nervous, but not really, because I was like, just speak to people how you like to speak to people.
Yeah.
And just got some great feedback. And there were people that were kind of coming in, like, who didn't know that I was speaking but just heard me. And one woman was just such a sweetheart. She was like, I just heard you speaking out there, and everything that you were saying completely resonates with how I feel right now. And like, it's just brilliant. I'm so glad I found uplifting content. And so that was fantastic. And, yeah, I was just reminding myself of what's important, and just to speak the truth. And
I love it. And I think that's if all of us just thought that way more often.
Yeah.
And just understand that that's what people want. One of my buddies, Sean Whalen, he's got a massive following on Facebook. And I interviewed him a few months back, and he said, people just want the truth. At the end of the day, that's all they want is the truth. And so just give it to them. And that's, right. And talk about keeping it simple.
Yeah.
And I lived by that. And then the other thing is I was at an event last year in the city. It was at Madison Square Garden. And I bumped into one of my Instagram followers. And it was so funny because he walked by me and he looked at me and he goes, You're the brand doctor. And I started dying. I was like, wow, this brand is really catching on, I guess. And he was just like, yeah, I follow your stuff. I've been following you a long time. And he's like in the personal development space too. And so I had the shittiest day the day before. You don't even want to know. It was the worst. It was one of the worst days of last year. And so I went to this event thinking like, all right, I'm here, I'm present. A lot of great speakers. Let me just stay dialed in and focus and just forget about yesterday. It was yesterday, right? So, and then he comes into my life, right? And we had lunch, and he was just like, there's 1,000 people in the room. And I bump into this guy that follows me on Instagram, talk about like coincidence. And again, right. We were talking about this offline. I don't think there's any coincidence to this. But I told him, I didn't get into detail, but I said, when we get into these funks, how do you get yourself out? And he said, always tell yourself, no matter what, that you're always enough. That you're always enough. And I could cry just thinking about it because I needed to hear that day so bad. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, like I've been hearing it over and over again lately. And for whatever reason, it just keeps showing up. And I don't know, maybe it's because now you see me getting all emotional here, but
I love it.
But maybe it's because, my wife and we tried for 2 years to have a kid, and we had to go the IVF route. And, we have a beautiful 7-month-old, and he's just the light of our lives. And I just think that like, I keep hearing that over and over and over again is because I want him to think that. Right. And so, for whatever it's worth, guys, and this is not the first time that I get choked up. I'm quite the emotional bag sometimes. But at the end of the day, for those that are watching and listening to everything Ione says, it's so true. Just show up and step up. There's people that need you. There's people that want you. There's people that just want to be in your presence because you're you. Mm-hmm. And so never forget that. And you're looking at and listening to a beautiful soul right here that I had the honor to interview today. And she is the result of creating uplifting content. And so I want all of you guys to go check out her brand. It's absolutely amazing. And it's very easy to remember. It's called Uplifting Content.
Because the world needs more of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those that drop some links, drop some social media handles just to make it easier for our listeners and viewers. How can we get more of Ione Butler and more of your content?
Yeah, so uplifting content on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. What do you want? We got it. And then Ione Butler, Ione Butler is all of my personal stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, ionebutler.com, upliftingcontent.com, upliftingclothing.com. We've got an uplifting clothing line. Just, uplifting content, and then you'll find everything from there, I'm sure.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Ione, thank you so much for spending your morning with us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And just sharing your journey, your story, the beautiful background that you have, and the inspiring, future. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And I could promise you that this isn't the last time we're going to be chatting. And for those of you guys that are listening to this episode and watching it, go check out this content. I was very, very impressed when I did my research on this individual, and she has quite the presence. And if you're looking for uplifting content in your life, if you're looking to make a difference, if you want to make an impact in other people's lives, then dial into this message, because it's very, very powerful, and it's going to help you live a better life. And that's the whole reason why Ione's on this episode today and on this podcast today. So real quick, guys, for those of you that haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, I invite you to do that and share it. And I thank you in advance for that. And I hope you got some value out of today's message. And, for me, it's step up. There's enough negativity out there. People want more positive. They want to be enough. And so just do that and speak the truth and share your story and just make the world a better place, one little exercise at a time. So there you have it, guys. Have an awesome day, and I will catch you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesignz.net.